Zen fam, welcome! Today's video is going to be a little bitty different. This is a video I've been wanting to make for a good wee while. And towards the conclusion of this video, I'm going to be putting forward a proposal. So I'd like you to stick about to the end so you can hear everything and get all the flavour of this video. Right, so you may have gathered from the title and from the thumbnail that this video is about Consolevaina. Now, there's probably a good amount of you out there in the Zen fam who are, well, no from Scotland, and especially no from the UK. And you're probably going like, what's Consolevaina? Is that like Castlevania? And to a certain extent, you'd be right, because the two hosts of the show basically loved Castlevania and named their show appropriately. So there's a tenuous link, but that's as far as it goes. But basically, way back in the heady days of 2004, two Glaswegians, Robert Florence, or we say here in Scotland, Rab, and his pal, Ryan McLeod, basically came together and they were talking smack on the Womack forums back in the day about how they wanted to actually do a proper video game show. Now at that point, we'd had our video game shows on ITV and Channel 4, and we'd had stuff like Games Master with the almighty god of gaming, Dominic Diamond. We'd had bits, we'd had Thumb Bandits and stuff on Sky and this and that. And there'd been various sort of showings of short run shows that have had lived and died on television. But at this point, there hadn't been anything serious on the internet. Well, along comes Rab and Ryan, and they basically filmed stuff with like the very cheapest of equipment. I mean, they had no money. They hired equipment. They had a lapel mic that was basically put on the end of a straightened coat hanger with a wire wrapped down it and tape going down the outside of it to make a microphone. And to basically do game capture, they just pointed a video camera at a telly. Because capture cards just didn't exist yet. And capturing video game footage from a TV required a meaty computer well outside the means of people at that time. So they basically set to work making a guerrilla style video game show with reviews and with sketch comedy intermingled and commentary on gaming and gaming culture. Guess how that influenced me. So they ran it for a good few years, basically putting it on CD-ROMs and firing CD-ROMs out to people, and then people would see the CD-ROMs, they'd copy the CD-ROMs, they'd pass the copies out, copies. And after a while, the show got to be doing alright, and then it started getting shared on BitTorrent sites, and people would download it, and it was like you'd get this teeny little box on your computer screen where you'd watch these two Scottish guys in really low quality video after sitting for half an hour to download like a 10-minute video. The internet back then was mince, absolute mince. We were talking about when we still had to have our actual router connected to an actual computer and try and download stuff forever to then watch a teeny weeny little thing in a teeny little box in the middle of your big screen. Your big screen that was like 8 inches across. So it was like this size. It was ridiculous. But it's what we had. And we still loved it because that's what we had. Anyway, so for a few years, Rab and Ryan were doing this show, and it was sporadic to say the least. They tried to do it on a monthly basis, but it was hard, because they were met with, obviously, life, and of course, trying to put together a show and have the time to do the writing, do their jobs, and film it, get it out. And so it was mostly monthly, to say the best. It was mostly monthly. And after a few years of doing this, of course, they started to gain some notoriety and a wee bit of fame on the small scale of Scottish gaming culture. And they gained prominence, and eventually they even got the attention of the BBC. Thus, you've heard me speak before about the Mighty Mighty Video Guiding. By the way, there's a playlist on the channel where I keep up. If you look at the playlists, of which there are several, there's actually a couple of playlists of video guided episodes. So if you want to get a bit more idea about what they were doing when they worked for the BBC, you can head there. But obviously after this video. And they kept on doing Consolevaina back and forth. They'd do like Consolevaina, then they did like about 3 seasons of video guiding, if memory serves. A couple of specials here and there. And all through it, as soon as they were done with making stuff for the BBC, they'd make stuff for Consolevaina. Consolevaina was finished, they did stuff for the BBC. And this rolled along for a good long time. And Rab and Ryan, basically, they just kept plugging out. And they kept it going till what was it? It was years. It was a good wee while they were doing it, and they'd made all these characters like Legend, who was this guy who was basically played by Rab, but he was pretending to be someone from Milwaukee. And he had this big fur hat on and these glasses and these shades and that, and a big heavy coat. And he would go out in the streets of Glasgow and he would ask people questions while pretending to be this guy. And every once in a while he would talk about the person he beat to become a famous gamer, this Lisa Simpson 45, and he was Legend and he would tell these stories about his young coming up as a gamer, and it would always be these stories that would slip into the dark and macabre. Really twisted stuff, but also kind of wonderful. I mean, in the early days, he even used to have one of their friends who would dress up as Hitler and go into game stores and ask questions to get bundled out of the store and that. And there was a real just sort of let's just go and do it mentality. And there was love for gaming. I mean, if there's anything you could ever want to remember Rab and Ryan for, is they're just straight love of video games. Yeah, they're good reviewers and they make good stuff. But the main thing to remember Rab and Ryan for is the fact that they just love video games. It's that simple. I mean, it's like you watch a Ryan review, it's different to Rab. Rab has a very different style. He's very much flowery with the words and will weave in references from film and television and books and theatre and music and bundled together in this eclectic, beautifully phrased word salad word salad is not the word I want, but it's as close as I'm going to get. This created narrative where he would basically outline everything you'd ever want to know about the game, but also entertain you. And it was dead wordy, and it was often maybe something a wee bit too clever for its own good. But still, ultimately, the man's a top-class reviewer. Even if you take and look at the reviews he did when they did the new version of Games Master 2 years ago on Channel 4, which I still maintain needs to come back for a full, proper series, which is what they promised us last year, and we've still not seen it. Channel 4, if you see this, get on that, because that needs to happen, because the remake of Games Master you did for those 6 45-minute episodes that you put out 2 years ago, actually, no, they were like 3 years maybe now. Time moves. Anyway, we were going to get these episodes, and we never did. And Rab was the perfect choice. He was the absolute right person to succeed the mighty, mighty God King Dominic Diamond. We don't talk about the extra Fletcher here. Anyway, so Rab has this really artistic way of talking about video games, an emotional centered way of talking about video games, similar to yours truly, I suppose. Whilst Ryan is a much more practical, he'll sort of like talk about his young experiences and his experiences now, and give you much more a nuts and bolts idea of what the game is and its mechanics and stuff. So between the two of them, with these two opposing styles of game review and stuff, they really just led in to games, gaming culture, and just video games as an entire entertainment sphere. And with their various projects over the years, I mean, Rab has written for Bernstein, and he even once appeared on the STV News, sorry, Scottish television, and basically was like involved in a TV debate about whether or not video games are harmful to society at large, and stuff about violent video games and that. I mean, he even was talking about Manhunt, and if you know anything about violent video games and the discussions that always come up about that, you'll know that Manhunt is always something that gets talked about ad nauseum. These days, I suppose it'd probably be more relevant to speak about Hatred, if you remember that game. Wow, that game really stirred stuff up. Anyway, so they were going at it, and then eventually they sort of like just stopped, and they went away for a few years. And about 7 years ago, they came back, and they started up video guiding again, and they were chugging away, doing the stuff, and it was obviously, you could see that their time spent with the BBC and their previous experience, and Rab having gained even more experience from constantly working with the BBC on various projects through the years, and in the last couple of years, obviously, working with Channel 4 and doing stuff with them. They bundled all this stuff together, and Ryan obviously had got more experience in other areas too, and they really just had elevated Consolevaina. And then, 2 years ago, Rab and Ryan basically put out a video saying, okay, we're Consolevaina, but we actually relinquish the rights of Consolevaina to you, the Consolevaina fans, the Consolevaina watchers. We want you to go out there and make your Consolevaina and make it part of the whole Consolevaina thing. They wanted to create like not so much a franchise, but they wanted to turn it into like open source. And they even used the words open source. Consolevaina now doesn't belong to them, it belongs to the community at large, which was a wonderful, wonderful move. In fact, my good friend and hashtag support Scottish YouTubers alum, Retro Video Game Virus, RVG, he actually has made 3 separate Consolevaina episodes on his channel. And they're grand. In fact, if anything, they were very much liked on the Consolevaina Reddit. Or was it Discord? It was Discord, sorry, yes. And then for some bizarro reason, there was somebody obviously that took the hump and got him kicked off the Discord, which is bizarre. And it goes very much against the ethos that Rab and Ryan have had all these years. You know, the keeping the whole clique nature of the video games industry. They very much pushed against that. But then there's some people inside, from what I can tell, admittedly, I have no direct evidence, but I can only suppose, I can only guess at, that there obviously was a clique within the video guiding Discord community that wanted only particular types of YouTubers to make videos. Yet the thing of it is, aside from one other guy I've heard talk of, but never been able to find, nobody else has ever, only one other guy has ever done a Consolevaina video. So all of the work of modern Consolevaina outside of Rab and Ryan, hence 2 years ago, has been Retro Video Game Virus. And it very much sits within the type of content that he creates. He very much does a lot of sketch-based humour, a lot of remembering gamer past, and compositing that onto gamer future, which is one of the main reasons why I A, subscribed to him, and I B, featured his channel on the series. So with all that, it's been chugging along and doing the thing, and then 6 months ago, they basically said, right, we're we're going to stop doing Consolevaina. And they kind of did and they kind of didn't, because now, for about the last few months, Consolevaina itself has been turned into CVXX. And CVXX is basically Rab and Ryan sitting in a studio, couple of comfy chairs, and they're talking video games and surrounding media, but primarily gaming. And they're going through, at the moment, episode by episode, talking through different years from their youth and all the stuff that was happening in and around the video game culture. So they've been talking about how, like, particular games were playing on the Spectrum or whatever, and then also sort of culturally placing that with TV and movies and music that was happening at that time, which is similar to some of the things I've seen done by Generation Pixel in his series where he was going year by year by year, his Console Years series, when he was going like, this is 1990, blah, 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 and these are the games, and these are the programs, and this is the music, and here are the video games that were happening at that time. And he's sort of giving it all a cultural basis and seeing how, like, from this one thing of remembering video games, remembering the music, the TV, the video, blah, 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 and all bring it together in one package, but centering it right back down again into gaming. And these kinds of ideas all filter back to Rab and Ryan. So basically, without Consolevaina, a lot of the ideas that have sprung about, especially in Scottish gaming YouTube, wouldn't exist or wouldn't have come to be as soon as they have. But it's always interesting to note that when Consolevaina started, it started so long ago that you have to wonder if it came about too soon. Because it started 2004, and what, YouTube didn't kick off till, was it like 2008, 2009? We were coming up, in a couple of years we'll be at the 30-year anniversary of YouTube. It's weird to think that YouTube is that old. But it's also weird to think that YouTube is that young. It's an odd one, that it really, really is. But basically, we had the little amount of stuff we got on TV. We had the odd mad show here and there, like I remember there was this one weird thing where Craig Charles, who was like just gotten famous from a couple of seasons of Red Dwarf and was really starting to ride that fame before he did Robot Wars. Way back in the day, he did this one show where basically it was the early startings of VR, and it was people playing VR games competitively against two teams of two people on BBC Two, primetime television. And this was obviously meant to be like the future. And it was like the really super clunky VR from back then in the early 90s. Completely wild stuff. And all these things, as the aforementioned, like Bad Influence and Games Master and Bits and Fun Bandits and the shows on Sky and some of the American content that was being made in similar veins by individual people that was being launched on the internet, which admittedly was there, but was nowhere near the same sort of spirit as what Rab and Ryan were doing. But Rab and Ryan did actually showcase on a couple of occasions. But with that, it's like, because they were before YouTube, they never really fit into YouTube. They were doing their own thing. I mean, it's like the Angry Video Game Nerd. The Angry Video Game Nerd, he made his first few videos before there was a YouTube, and then YouTube came along, and then a friend of the Angry Video Game Nerd said, dude, you should put that stuff up on YouTube. He did. Those videos did well, and the Angry Video Game Nerd, or was it Nintendo Nerd or whatever it was back in the day, that was born. I don't know if he's still going. He probably is. But there's like a billion videos for that guy that still exist on YouTube to this very day. And it's just wonderful to note that like there is still all this stuff from video guiding online. There is all this stuff from Consolevaina online. Admittedly, you can't get at a lot of the really early stuff because that's all hidden behind like Patreon walls and stuff, and some of it's just lost to time. There's some people who have like clips of it and whatnot, but like CDs, I think are all pretty much gone. And like, I'm not sure if the BitTorrent site still exists. I've not really looked, but then I've never had much luck with BitTorrent. I can never get it to work. Like, I've never been a Pirate Bay or anything, just because I've just never been able to get that stuff to work. Even like the legal BitTorrent sites, I don't know, I was just like cursed in that way. But yeah, Rab and Ryan, they have brought about so much stuff, and they brought characters, and they brought humour, and they brought writing, and they brought heart and soul to video game stuff. I'd hesitate to call it journalism because it comes from within. It's not this, this sort of IGNification of video games. It's not like we will write the script, we will make sure it says certain things, we'll make it SEO friendly, and then we'll make sure it pumps it into the world, and there'll be adverts attached to it, and there'll be particular people who will speak upon it. And no, Rab and Ryan, they just went out there and did it. In fact, a lot of their stuff was just ad hoc. Like, they had this guy, Kenny, and Kenny was a wild card. I mean, there was one time when they were like basically trying to talk about how you would get to play as Goro in Mortal Kombat on, I think it was on the SNES. And basically, it's just a 5-minute sequence of like Kenny just beating the absolute living hell for realsies out Rab in the back garden. He's just like smacking him and smacking him and smacking him and smacking him. And I think there was something crazy going on there. And like Limmy, right? Some of you may have heard of Limmy. Limmy got his start on Consolevaina. No joke. So Consolevaina is responsible for so much. And that's why for a good number of years, especially since Rab and Ryan released that video going, Consolevaina belongs to all of you, I've long thought for the last couple of years, I would like to make Consolevaina, but it's a big endeavour. It requires something that I don't really do, writing. I mean, if anybody that's been with the channel for any length of time will tell you in the comment section, if you're a new person, you can ask, is that everything I come up with, I might sometimes put some bullet points on a piece of paper in front of me, but largely speaking, it's all remembered. It's all just comes forward. I don't use a script. I don't use AI. I spit on AI, as a matter of fact. Everything I do is 100% natural, off the top of the dome. It's that simple. And that's why I would like, at this point, to reach out to my fellow Scottish gaming YouTubers. Whether I have worked with you in the past or not, I would love, deeply love, for any one of you or multiples of you for us to come together and make a real, true, full-throated episode of Consolevaina, as Rab and Ryan have now left the Consolevaina format basically behind with their CVXX discussion format and the changing to the logo to the CVXX logo that's plastered over the Consolevaina logo. Because it's still Consolevaina, but it's now also CVXX with the backing of Guffed Industries. So, if you're a fellow gaming YouTuber in Scotland, regardless of size, and you love video games, as I love video games, as Rab and Ryan clearly love video games, then I would like to come to you and work with you. And I don't just mean, we'll put up bits of footage on YouTube in a like an unlisted form, and then you'll rip that piece down and so on and so forth. I mean, actually come together physically, script write, and shoot, and edit, and make it a group effort where some people will be on camera, some people will be script writing, some people will do the editing, and we will all share in the video. The video will be made, the file will be given to everybody who participated, and we will all put the video on our own platforms. So if I've done a couple of pieces of review to camera, then obviously I have a share of that video and I will put it out on my platform. If like Retro Video Game Virus has done a bunch of the writing, then but hasn't appeared on camera, then obviously yes, he will appear on the video. If Gib84, I don't know, does a bunch of gameplay for it to be recorded for it, great. If Generation Pixel is the cameraman for some of the shots but decides not to be on camera, any variation of it, any one of us, and many other YouTubers aside, there's a butt ton of really awesome guys and girls in the Scottish gaming YouTube community. If we come together, I think that not only could we make a grand episode of Consolevaina and share it, and with obviously with the blessing of Rab and Ryan, as they have given the blessing in their video saying Consolevaina now belongs to you, then I think that maybe we could come together and maybe every few months, like let's maybe call it like a quarterly turnaround even. You know, maybe we'll do one in 6 months and do one another 6 months, and maybe once we get good at it, maybe we'll bring it down to 3 months. I mean, obviously I'm not talking monthly because, you know, we've all got jobs and stuff, but and responsibilities and lives. But I think it'd be really, really cool that even if we could just get one out, and maybe if we've done one, we could do two, maybe we've done 2, 3, blah, 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 blah. But let's concentrate on getting one really cool episode of modern 2020's Consolevaina out that's completely community built by YouTubers of a similar status to myself. You know, not some guy that's got like 10 million subscribers, but by small Scottish gaming YouTubers that are like, you know, may only have a couple of hundred subscribers, to other Scottish gaming YouTubers who may be knocking around the 2,000 to 3,000 mark of subscribers. And I just think that this would be a truly wonderful thing to do. So, if you're a Scottish gaming YouTuber or you follow other Scottish gaming YouTubers, then share this video around and let's come together. Let's make an episode, because I have some of the skills. You may have some of the other skills. You maybe have the rest of the skills. And you might have the skills that completes the rest of us. And together, I think we could make something very, very cool. And of course, you can hashtag support Scottish YouTubers. And of course, as always, nae bother.